Well, hi Neville. It's good to meet you here for the first time. I guess we'll call this a over the web QSO from AA7AR to ZL2BNE. So um, I guess what Neville and I've been sending emails back and forth talking about NorCal 40s and NorCal 30s, and we've conversed enough that it became time where I told him, we ought to just have a Zoom call so I can see what you've been building. So Neville was nice enough to set up the call, and it hit perfectly here at 11 o'clock in the morning for me. So very convenient. And he's agreed to go through some of the process and the stories of putting together the Norcal 30B instead of the 40B. And I think there's some particularly interesting stories in there around the counterfeit parts. So Neville, go ahead and sort of see if you can maybe even cover the back to the history of that groups.io and how you got started and stuff. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and hi there, Bruce. And yes, it's morning here too. It's approaching, coming up to 9 in the morning. Except it's your future. It's tomorrow, so it's you're on Wednesday and I'm on Thursday. So it's a bit spooky. So if you want the lotto results or anything, they're already in, and I can forward them to you. But I
Right.
won't mention them now because we don't want everyone stealing our fortune.
Oh, Back to
Um,
the Future then. So you
yeah.
tell me
So
by tomorrow
yeah,
what.
I started off on the Norcal adventure. Somehow I became aware of David putting out the 40B, and very quickly became aware of the group IO, and signed up for that because I was ready for an analog project. I didn't know what it was, but it looked intriguing, and monitored the group for a wee while, and it's at some point in time somebody popped up a message along the lines of, are the boards alone available? And David said, yes, I've got a few spares here that I'm happy to on sell. And I responded to that. And all these things are problematic when you're on the other side of the planet, but I had a copper who was in the US at that stage, so um, David sent them to my friend's address, and in time, my friend came back to New Zealand and delivered them to me. So, I was away, but because it wasn't a kit, it wasn't just a matter of plug and play. So, in time, I sat down and said, "Well, we'll just break this down." And following along from what you built with your 40B, I took the same philosophy. Instead of just poking parts in and then applying volts and hoping for the best, I went, rightio, what's the first thing we're going to put in? So we put the power socket in, and put the voltage regulator in, and yep, that's all fine. And then after that, probably I think the next thing I did was build up the VFO, and I made the decision to convert to 30 meters. The choice was to retain the 4 meg or 4.915 or whatever it is meg IF and change the VFO, or leave the VFO at 2 megs and put in an 8 meg IF, and that's the route I took.
So Neville, that's
So
interesting. So I guess that means you have a scope and a frequency counter, and you're sort of familiar and happy with all this RF work because that was the direction you started.
yes, yeah, my test gear is very limited, but yes, I'm fortunate to have a scope, and I'm okay with the maths and the theory behind it. So understanding that you've got an oscillator and you've got L's and C's, and which elements combine to generate the resonant frequency. I'm okay with all that. So I banged all that information into an Excel spreadsheet and worked out, based on cores I had, because I didn't have the same toroidal core type that the kit had. The kit's got a white one. I'm not sure what the
I think
suffix is, but
is that a 6 maybe, I think, or
yeah, I'm not
you
sure,
know
but
that I think you get full credit though, because it's hard enough to take a kit and get it to run at the end, but to take bare boards and go scrounge it all, I think a lot of people lose interest before they ever get all the parts
well,
collected.
that's the challenge, isn't it? And I've had plenty of setbacks over the years, so a failure is not discouraging. It's character building and makes you go, I'm going to get you, you bugger. So
And do you collect as you go, or do you collect everything in a box and then build?
I for this particular project, I probably had 95% of the stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Um, I I can't think of anything. Oh, there was I know what there was those um resistor banks. There's
Oh yeah,
8 or 10 resistors in a funny package with 8 or 10 legs hanging out of it, and they were a whole lot of 2 meg resistors used in the AGC. I didn't have any of those, for example, and I was just going to solder some um, surface mount on the board. It would have been a bit huckery. That was what I was going to do, but I had to put an order into DigiKey for whatever, nothing to do with the project, and I went, oh well, I'll throw that in it, and again, places like DigiKey and all that, the prices are cheap enough, but the shipping is prohibitive
yeah.
to New Zealand. So what people like I do is we have a shopping cart, and when we think, oh, that'll be a useful piece of kit for something up in the future, you biff it in the shopping cart, and when you get up to about $100, yeah, then they offer you free shipping.
Oh, that's
So
great.
yeah, so you need to be thinking well into the future when you're ordering your parts. It's not like, oh, I need an X, Y, Z, and I've got Amazon Prime and it'll be here tomorrow. It don't work
Right.
like that in this part of the world. Um, so yeah, most of that stuff I had, and as I say, I didn't have the right cores, but I had some 68 twos, which are the red ones, same diameter, but the red ones in color. So I thought, well, I'll use one of those, and applied the maths, turns, and all that sort of stuff, and got that to work. And I mean, a simple thing like David's kit has a nice little um, retaining domey thingamy, so that the core is rock solid on the board. I don't know what they are, but I had a look at it and printed something up on the 3D printer, and yeah, works a treat. Works a
That's
treat.
cool.
So very much you cobble together what you have, and yeah, talking about the VFO, I didn't have the right VariCap. I had some VariCaps that I've had for some time for a different project, and I got them off the GQRP club, um, and so they um, had a different frequency. Well, not they had different picofarads,
Mhm.
so I had to take all that into account when I was designing the component or calculating the components around the VFO. But
And then
you
again, you
know,
have
but
shipping from the UK to deal with.
yeah, so the VariCaps came from the UK. I'm a member of the GQRP. I think they're a great little place. They're little they're quarterly magazines worth a read, and um, yeah, for me, accessing parts is a problem. Living in this part of the world, and you're getting stuff out of the UK is actually is a reasonable option. Um, so yeah, so we got the VFO going, and then slowly set their way through. So the next thing would be getting the receiver to go. Well, at the front of the receiver is the band pass filter. Well, that's band dependent, so you got your calculator out again, and up at 10 megs, I swapped from the O2 mix, the red O2s, I swapped them out for the yellow not 06, the yellow -6 toroids.
Mhm.
And again, it's just a calculation exercise, and you go on the website and get the turns, and then with things like that, I'm forever building up low pass filters or band pass filters, and I've got into the habit of tacking them to a piece of copper clad board on the bench, and then plugging the old nano V&A in and just sweeping it.
Oh, that's
Uh,
cool.
yeah, so it's
And when you do the choice of the inductor and the cap, do you start from scratch or pick the cap that was already on the board, or what do you do there?
yeah. So like I make use of that ELSI program, ELSIE.
Hmm.
So I make that's the starting point, and it gives you some really good starting figures, and just get values, and you tack them on, and sometimes you've got the right values, and sometimes you've got to parallel a couple of capacitors up to get where you want to go. I mean, that's something that, just as an aside, that's something I don't skimp and save on. I buy good quality NPO capacitors from DigiKey, and I've got a good range of them. Wasn't cheap, but buy them in bunches of 50 or 100 or whatever it is to get the unit price down, and I've got a lifetime supply of those now.
That's cool. Yeah, I think I bought an assortment from them too, so it is nice having.
Yeah, and then when you want to do something like the project we're talking about, I don't have to go, oh, I wonder if I've got those, or make a shopping list or whatever. I
Yeah.
just go, I've got plenty of good quality capacitors. I know I can attack all that without even having to look what I've got in the junk box. So yeah. Uh, so really it was just working my way through the various modules and making things fit with what I had. And at the same time, the big challenge was understanding all the subtleties of the Norcal design. And you look at an innocent capacitor or whatever, and you go, well, it's, what was his name? Wayne Burdick.
Yeah, yeah.
He was no clown. So if he put a component there, it's there for a reason.
Yeah, he was really big on the Norcal, the original one, of getting minimal parts count so we could get a cheap kit out to the club.
Absolutely, yeah. So there was nothing there for decorative purposes. Everything had a purpose, and so it was a matter of sitting down and going, what's that doing there? And when you finally figured out what it was, okay, is it frequency dependent or not? And if it was, you made the change.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just worked my way through the whole receiver chain. Just thinking back off the top of my head, Bruce, when you built your one up, you bypassed the AGC just to make sure the receiver was working, and I did exactly the same. So you got the second mixer working, and then you went straight to the audio amplifier, and when you're happy with that, oh, I bypassed the RIT, for example. I remember doing that, just to get it working. Go, yep, it's working.
Yeah, I
And
think it's fun. The only difference I think was I was even thinking a step further was what if somebody doesn't have test equipment? And I think I started with the audio amp, was sort of doing the finger test on the way back through. And
oh,
that,
yes, yes,
that got me through the IF before I had to worry about even seeing if it would receive a station. So that was kind of fun just to go from audio to some horrible harmonic coming through from the AM band or something like that.
yeah. Now that you say that, I might have built the audio amp before I put the front end in. Now that you say that, for that very reason, because uh, it's so satisfying, isn't it, to
It is,
put
yeah,
your
to see
finger on the
something
input
working.
of 386 and hear the hum.
Exactly. I built something that works, right?
Yeah, look at that. I can make a silly noise. So, yeah. But the whole process took, oh, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months. It wasn't just to sit down and do it over the weekend. It was, get a bit going, and sit back and smile, and then of course we have lots of other things in our life that we need to be taking care of, and including
Exactly.
working for a living and looking after family, and well, not looking after, but being part of a family. So these hobbies, they don't consume me. They're an opportunity to be distracted when time permits. So these things take forever, and yeah, work my way through it. And yeah, had lots of challenges along the way. I had a very interesting experience at the end. I was getting whatever the document said out of the preamplifier. I can't remember now what it was. It might have been a volt peak to peak or 2 volts peak to peak. Out of I think I used a 2N2222, and I don't think that was what was in the documentation, just another part. But anyway, I was getting about what it should have been. And then then it was time to put the final transistor in, which I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. And I binged that in, and you know, got half a watt out or whatever it was, and I was heartbroken. And you're checking all the out because everything's frequency dependent, and you're looking at the low pass filter on the end with great suspicion, going, well, that's clearly um, um, cutting in below 10 megs, and it wasn't. And in the end, I took the final transistor out. There's nothing wrong with it. You put it on the transistor tester or whatever, and it's doing what it should do. Had the right, according to the meter, had the right HFE, whatever it was. But I put a completely different PNP transistor in. It wasn't even pin compatible. It was some transistors I'd purchased off eBay many years ago that were cut out of old VHF land mobile radios. The detail I can't remember, but they turned up very second hand, but clearly were genuine parts. And popped one of those in, and the poor bloody thing literally burst into life. And I get a very solid 5 watts out of my little baby.
That's pretty cool.
And
I'm look into that myself. But hey,
yeah,
and
and I cast my mind back to the source of the original transistors, and I went, I remember buying those off eBay in the very early days, and it was when I didn't have the knowledge. It was when I thought the world was a nice place, and I didn't realize that there were people out there that sold counterfeit parts. And so these things had the right markings on them, but clearly weren't true to label. As you move on, you become a cynic of the world, and you know that when you're buying things out of eBay and the likes, you've got to be mindful that you might not be buying what you're buying.
Yeah, the
But
funny part
back
is
when
that
I bought
eBay
those,
guy, like the eBay guy,
back when I bought those, I didn't know about that sort of stuff, and when I plugged them in, it never even occurred to me that they were ex eBay and could have been counterfeit. Didn't even occur to me, but yeah.
Yeah, and it could be just
Anyway, if you want any of those parts off me now, Bruce, you're out of luck because they're in the landfill somewhere.
very good. And one last decision, or one decision I wanted to see what you did was the crystals. Where did you get those, and how did you match them?
Well, yeah, I'm a bit naughty here. I buy them crystals again out of well, I say eBay, and I used to get stuff from eBay, but I now use AliExpress because it's just seems to work better for me in this part of the world, like in terms of shipping and getting here. And so at different times, I've just bought crystals, like a bag of 50. I didn't have a bag of 50 of the 8 meg. I had about 10. Why I had 10 8 meg crystals, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I just had them. And I took them out of the bag. I made a very simple jig that I plugged into the Nano V&A. And the only characterization I did was what frequency are they? I have no idea what the motional capacitance and inductance and all those things that all the experts get excited about. I just tried to match them in terms of, the closest in frequency.
Yeah, yeah.
And how many does the kit take? It takes
Well, that's pretty cool.
five,
Sometimes,
6, or 7 or something. I can't remember now. By the time you have the BFO one as well and the transmit one, it might be 6. Does the IF have 4 or 5 crystals? Probably. Oh, it's 4, isn't it? In a square.
yeah,
Yeah. So there'll be 6 in total, and I had 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever in the bag. So my selection was limited.
but it works, so that's cool.
But yeah, it works. The transmit one in this, I'm doing this again from memory. There's a series capacitor, a trimmer capacitor to pull it, so that you're off by your side tone, as it were. And I couldn't pull it enough. It was wrong. And so in the end, I just tacked a I don't know what it was, a 10 pick. I noticed it worked perfectly when I put the scope probe on to see what was going on, and I concluded pretty much straight away that the capacitance of the scope probe was pulling it just enough. So I got a 10 or 15 picofarad capacitor out of the box and just put it across the crystal, and boom, I was cooking with gas.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, yeah. So
Neville, I'm looking. We're coming up on an hour, so I suppose we ought to call this.
Oh shit! Yeah, we better pull the pin, Bruce. But
yeah, let's call it part 1, and we'll come back in part 2. Maybe we'll get you to open up the case, and we'll take a look about and see how it looks.
Oh, as long as you only let me take the top off and not the bottom. I built up a project some time ago and took it to the local radio club because as a show and tell, and I had the top off. And they said, "What about taking the bottom off?" I said, "No bloody way. You'll get to see my shoddy soldering."
Exactly. No, we won't do that to you. Just take a look through the top.
Yeah, no, we can do that. Oh, crikey. Well, look, you're a bit like me. We've both got day jobs and we're meant to be making some dollars to keep the family in food and clothing. So we better get on with our day jobs, eh?
Exactly. So I'll have to say thanks, Neville. This was great. And again, this is ZL2BNE from AA7AR. So we will call this part 1. I'll post it and we'll see what kind of reactions we get. And we'll do a part 2 if people like it.
Yeah, good as gold. Love